Hey, welcome, Faithful Politics listeners and viewers. If you're watching us on our YouTube channel, I am your political host, Will Wright, and your faithful host, Josh Bertram, is actually out this week. He's currently out trying to reinvent the ice bucket challenge without the ice or bucket. So I don't know, go figure. But anyways, in his place, we have a special guest with us this week, Leon Benjamin. He's a Republican candidate running for Virginia's mighty 4th Congressional District. Now, this also happens to be the district that this show is based out of. So I thought it'd be fitting to have him on the show. So welcome, Leon, to Faithful Politics.
Yes, how you doing? And it's the 4th Congressional District.
Oh, did I see something different? My bad. Like I should know that.
Yeah, that's okay.
4th, like.
But yeah, we are glad and very excited. You know what's going on right now, and just thank you so much, Will, for having us. We know that there's a lot of things going on around our nation, of course, and so we don't have to worry about if any news is out there. There's plenty to talk about. And so we're glad that God is still giving us hope here in this nation, and that there are still people who are willing to stand for what is right and what is the truth.
That's right. That's right. Now just a quick note. So for everybody listening or watching, we did offer an invitation to your opponent, Donald McEachin. Haven't heard anything back yet, but if you're watching, you're more than welcome to give us a call. We'd love to have you on. Now, to start off first, I love to hear a little bit more about yourself. Like who is Leon Benjamin, and why are you running for Congress?
Yes, well, thanks a lot. I'm first and foremost, I'm a child of God. I gave my life to the Lord in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, during the Gulf Wars. Desert Shield, Desert Storm. It was a crazy story. I called my mom on New Year's Day. Around 1990 going into 1991, and I said, "Mom, I'm saved." And she said, "That's great, Leon. You're like you're probably gonna die, so that's why you gave your life to Jesus." But I didn't die, and I'm here 30 years later. But I'm a husband of 30 years, married to a wonderful person, Maria, 3 wonderful kids. And my wife and I, we've been co-laboring in ministry now going on 20 years, where we pastor a church in Virginia, New Life Harvest Church. And then recently we launched a church in Tulsa, Oklahoma called the Real Remnant Church, where we're hanging out with guys like Clay Clark, and General Flynn, and a lot of great people we've been traveling now for over a year now, going to different cities, just shouting out the message, what Americans need to be informed about. We call it the Reawaken Tours because it's really about an awakening. It's not about, slamming, information on people, at people, but actually drawing people who want to know more.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now,
so that's what we've been doing. And I have, again, I'm running for Congress in Virginia's 4th Congressional District. I'm a veteran, so I served in the Gulf Wars during Desert Shield, Desert Storm, of course. I was attached to a big ship called the John F. Kennedy, CV-67. It's old now, so they've retired that thing. It was the last of the diesels before the nukes came in, nuclear ships. And again, I've just been serving in the community. Me and my wife both went to high school together. I was in a marching band, and that's where I met her. She was 12 years old. So, didn't know I was going to marry her, but, we were in the marching band. I'm musically inclined. I played, the trumpet, trombone, tuba. I was in marching band as a drum major. Even in college, I was at UVA. Imagine being in the pep band at UVA. So I was in the pep band, running crazy on the field. I know. But then I also went to Virginia Union, and I was at Virginia Union as well, historical Black college, where I was there involved in music and also as well as in engineering. So it's a great life. I grew up in my neighborhood with everybody else in the hood, in the projects, and just going and playing and living and learning. And God, I give him all the credit for where I am right now. I wouldn't be doing any of this if it wasn't for the Lord.
That's awesome. Now, just to do the math. So you and your wife been married 30 years, but you've known each other since you were 12. So.
Yeah, I met her again. I was in the 10th grade. She was in the 8th grade. So we didn't get married then. Thank God, right?
So have you guys known each other for what? Like, I don't know. I can't do the math real quick, but
That's a lot of years.
It's a lot of years.
I know. We separated once I went away to college. That was in like 86, so to speak, around that time. Then we came back together in 91. So
wow.
Just add about maybe 5 years to that. So 30 plus, but she helps me now with we have a daycare business, lots and lots of kids. I mean, 80 plus kids.
Damn.
And we run a summer camp program that we got going on right now where we're allowing kids ages 12 to around 15 or 16 or so come free. So we want to keep the kids off the street. So it's a crime prevention program that we are part of just to keep the kids off of the streets. And so that's pretty neat. So my wife is doing an awesome job running that program.
That's really neat. So as part of your campaigning, I'm assuming that you're doing quite a bit of traveling around the 4th district. So I got to ask, like, what are your top 3 favorite places to eat in the 4th district?
Well, I'm a Red Lobster fan. So I'm sorry. I know people might not like seafood, but I love seafood. I'm like what they call Jamaican. So I was born in the United States, but my mother is Jamaican. So I love seafood. I love seafood. So Red Lobster is there. Then me and my wife, we like to go sometimes. We went the other day to Olive Garden.
All right.
And so
okay,
that's a great place. And then we like to just hang out. And I know it's crazy, but we go to Wingstop. So
cool. All right. Well, I was
nice wings.
I was hoping you would say like my favorite sort of like spot. I don't know, like places where there's good food. I mean, Carytown's good, but that's outside of the district. But like Old Town Pizza.
Oh, Carytown's in my district.
Okay.
Yep. We go down to Carytown. We do.
All right.
We go down to Carytown. We like Carytown. Yes.
All right. Cool. Now, so if you're elected, what are some of your priorities that you hope to get done in Congress?
Well, I mean, the main thing right now is, of course, and most voters are concerned about this too as well, is our inflation. We are 8.6. I mean, it looks like it's not slowing down. And if inflation doesn't slow down and then you increase interest rates, everybody crashes. I'm sorry. It doesn't matter who you are. So we got to deal with that. Our spending has gone through the roof. And we're even sending money over to countries that we shouldn't be sending money over to. Instead of protecting our own borders and our own backyard, I'm what they call an America First candidate. So it's about America first. And if anybody has a problem with that lives in America, I challenge them, go on the map right now and just pick out a country and go over there for a couple of years, okay, and see how it's going. But right now, America is still the best place, the greatest countries ever to be. But we got to deal with this inflation. We got to also deal with the gas. This is ridiculous. We should be drilling our own gas. Don't listen to what the administration is saying right now. They are literally really discouraging oil companies from drilling and also natural gas from fracking. Their whole idea of climate change, their whole Green New Deal or whatever, I don't know what that is. No more eating cows, no more eating meat, no more flying with air. Even though John Kerry is flying around with an airplane saying it's necessary that I fly to tell everybody not to fly.
Yeah.
But anyway, but we got to deal with that. The third thing, of course, we got to deal with home family. That means dealing with education, our children, teaching critical race theory has to go, parental choice, things where parents get to choose what curriculums are being taught to their children in schools, like the transgender. I think that's just very discouraging to tell children at 5 years old that you don't know what you are. So therefore, we can kind of recruit you into, turning yourself into a gender that you're not. And we got to deal with it. That's home. That's family. And so I'm a father and raising kids. We got to understand the family is important. So along with the money, the economy, we got to deal with the family. I've got to deal with the family. And that also crosses right over into the illegal immigration. I am one that I know that during the Trump administration, the legal immigration was curtailed, even to the point where it was being reversed, and with the building of the wall, and supporting ICE and supporting of those that are trying to protect our borders. And so we're going to have to deal with those. I could stop right there. I mean, those are the main things right there that we can just deal with. It just goes without said. Our Constitution ensures our rights: First Amendment, Second Amendment. The right to not go hunting, but the right to bear arms, not to protect just from the criminal. Because right now, a lot of cases are coming up saying, the shootings need to stop, and we need to take away the people's guns. But the one of the main things our founding fathers held the Second Amendment up was to protect against also tyranny, not just criminals, but tyrannical people who not wear hoodies or so forth, or wear sneakers and just running around robbing and people, but those who wear suits and ties, politicians. Okay, we got to protect ourselves from tyrannical government. So that's what the Second Amendment was for. So I'll just stop right there. As you know, it's a lot of work, right? It's a lot of work.
It is.
That needs to be done. Yeah. And when I go in, it's like roll up your sleeves and let's represent the 4th Congressional District the right way. I'm not the boss. I'm the servant.
Got it. Well, number one, I appreciate your passion. I could tell you're extremely passionate about, your ministry, your candidacy, everything. So I hats off to you for kind of maintaining that, because I know that campaigning can be pretty tiresome. and kind of on a separate note, I really wish that Josh could have been here. So if you're unfamiliar with our show, our dynamic is Pastor Josh is he's a Trump voting white conservative pastor. I'm sort of the flaming liberal of the group, and he's one of my best friends. But like, we don't see eye to eye on anything politically, and people listen or watch our show because they want to hear what Josh has to say, or they want to hear what I have to say. So if there's any liberal listeners right now listening and they're wondering, well, Will, why aren't you pushing back against Leon? He's saying X, Y, and Z that's counter to what you believe. That's not the point here. My point is, you're a representative for the district that I live in, and I want to hear from you. I don't want to my job isn't to, challenge you in every single nook and cranny, every I and every T. It's to basically say, hey, why are you the best person for the job? And to that end, I know that you ran before in 2020. And you unfortunately lost, but I'm curious on what lessons have you learned from that campaign that you think better positions you for this time around?
I think one of the greatest lessons to learn is that America is not just an experiment. I know people like to say the great experiment, but America is a place that is founding upon Christian Judeo roots, and that we have values. And it doesn't matter what party you're in. There are values that are embedded in this nation that secure our freedoms, that secure our liberties. And so I learned a lot about, it's not just about telling people what their values are. It's really about hearing from people what their values are. And campaigning is not, we got 2 ears and 1 mouth, right? So it's about listening as opposed to talking a lot. So one of the things we're doing, we're touring around, we're talking about, I call it Leon Listens. So I really want to be able to hear. We're going to be going down into Emporia, Brunswick. We're going to be right here in Richmond, of course, in this area. We're setting up virtual town halls to listen, and even if we have people that don't agree with us, that's what this country is all about. First Amendment, the freedom of speech, without bopping each other side the head because we don't agree with each other. That's what's going on right now, with a lot of groups. The moment you say something that is not with their agenda, they start screaming, yelling, calling names. That's not what it's really all about. So that's one thing I learned from this campaign. I learned a lot of other things, but that's one of the main things, is that the values run true no matter what party you're in.
Got it. And you've spoken a lot about your faith, both on the campaign trail and just in the short time that we've talked to each other. And I'm curious to kind of get your take on, this idea of Christian nationalism. You hear it a lot. We've actually covered it and had tons of people on this show talk about Christian nationalism. I'd love to kind of get your thoughts about Christian nationalism. Is it a threat? Is it good? What's the big deal about Christian nationalism?
I think when it comes from what we call a biblical worldview, we have to understand Jesus did not teach Christianity. He taught the kingdom of God, which is a country. He talked about heaven and what that country represents, and all of its morality, all of its ethics, its rules, and so forth. And so when we talk about Christianity, we have to understand that there's some people who can take anything, including me or anybody else, and run crazy with it and go to the extreme and forget about the whole message of Jesus Christ. And so I think it just sums it up. John 3:16, for God so loved not an ethnicity, not a particular culture, not just men, okay? No, he loved the world. That word in the Greek is cosmos, okay? It means systems. And so he really cares about what supports his creation. And if Christianity runs like that, I'm all for it. But, when we start to exclude and start to step on one person's neck just to advance, then that's not real true principles or core values that causes everyone to be lifted. I mean, John F. Kennedy said it, a rising tide raises all ships. I think he was talking about everyone in America that loves this nation.
Yeah. So specifically with Christian nationalism and maybe setting some definitional terms might be helpful. Like when I think of Christian nationalism, I think, people that basically want to govern using the Bible, or intertwining their faith so closely with their political beliefs that they try to leverage the government to push like their biblical worldview. So on January 6th, a lot of people out there with flags, proclaiming Jesus, what have you, that may or may not have entered the Capitol. I think of that when I think of Christian nationalism. So what are your thoughts about that? What I just mentioned?
We have to go back to the individual. I'd like to know, what does Bill Gates use as his view? What book is he reading? I want to know Klaus Schwab, Yuval Harari. We always want to ask the Christian everybody knows we use the Bible, but we don't ask the other questions. What does Biden use? I want to know what books these guys are reading to do their politics, and then it will be fair. Because everyone knows Christians use the Bible, but what do these other guys use? What did Hitler use? I mean, if he used the Bible, then let's say, how did he interpret it? Because you can use the Bible and still not interpret it right. Yeah. And for that case, you can use any book and just get out of it what you want. And so to really understand real, true, I think I was reading the Declaration of Independence today, and it kept on talking about nature's God, the laws of nature and nature's God, and that we all came from a creator. Well, I'm trying to figure out, whose creator were our founding fathers talking about? And I only saw one. It said creator. It wasn't plural. So we came from one God. I mean, whose God is that? And so if everyone wants to choose their God, of course, we're in a nation, then you can do that. But when it comes to my rights as an individual, it gets real deep, right? Because if your God says I should die and you should live, I want to know why. I want to know why that your God said that. And if you can explain it to me, and if it makes sense, let's go with that. But if it doesn't make sense, then I have every right to stand and to fight against that.
Mm.
And I think what our founding fathers taught us was that if, like they did the whole grievances or redress in the Declaration of Independence, when do you overthrow a government? I mean, when do you resist? When do you stand and reinstitute a new form of government?
Mm.
And even though that's not in the Bible, it's in the Constitution, I'm a believer that both of them should go together.
Mm. Got it. Now, what do you say to people that, don't have a faith in God or gods? Like you have a lot of mention on your website, we have to restore our faith in God, not government. So for the atheist that might be listening here in the 4th District, what message would you have for that person?
Oh, I love atheists, because I was on the plane early on last year, and if there were any atheists on there, I heard one call out Jesus. So the plane was shaking. It didn't even look like we were going to land. I'm serious. It was the most terrible turbulence I have ever been on an airplane. My wife was holding on to me, squeezing me. I mean, everybody was like, and if there were any atheists on the plane, I would not be mad. Trust me. If you said Jesus, I wouldn't beat you up. I'll share, So I think really when it comes down to us, we all have a belief system. And that belief system, of course, because God made us all free moral agents, you have a right to use that belief system, But still, as a servant in Congress, I still have to serve and to make sure that you are protected, that your rights are secured, and that no one's trying to break into your house and take your property.
Mm.
I mean, I still have to serve it doesn't matter what you believe in. I have to serve all of them.
Yeah, that's good. Now you were a spiritual advisor to Donald Trump, weren't you?
Yes. I still am. I mean, the National Faith Advisory Council is still in place, but during his administration, yes, we were amongst about maybe 30 that were a part of that team.
Got it. Walk me through, for a person that's never, spiritually advised any president at any time. What does that include, or what does that entail?
I mean, first and foremost, it's prayer.
Mm-hmm.
This is in the book of Timothy, where we ought to pray for all those that are in authority. It doesn't mention presidents; it mentions kings, but in authority mentions everything else. And so, praying for President Donald Trump was at the top of the list, but also being able, because he's a very humble person. So, the quickest sign of humility is not people who give commands, but people who ask questions. Mm. And so he was one to ask, how does this sound? Especially when we're doing National Day of Prayer and doing things about the different declarations. And it was just amazing how he was able to want to know what is the best way to do that as far as spiritually concerned. So that was great to know that he humbled himself. And he wanted to know, when I first met him, he would say, you guys got the power. But now, recently, he has confessed Christ himself in a more determined way. And I think that's great. That is not just about you guys. If we get hit, he gets hit too. So it's not, he's confessed Jesus Christ. And I think one of the things that we all pray about, all leaders, is that they are able to lead everyone in a spiritual way that gives everyone the benefit. As the Constitution says, we believe that all men are innocent before proven guilty. And that's what love is in 1 Corinthians 13. Love believeth all things, hopeth all things. That doesn't, it's believing the best first before we go down that trail of anything else.
Yeah. So you said something that sort of caught my ear, that Trump, basically confessed his belief in Jesus, and I think that's great. I mean, so if there's one thing that unites Pastor Josh and I, is that we're both believers. Actually, I attend his church, yeah, go figure. I've always wondered about Trump's salvation, for the lack of a better word, because a lot of the times you hear him talk, and even like you hear him talk when he was on the campaign trail, about he doesn't have to ask for forgiveness or whatnot. So I'm curious, like, has a lot of those, perceptions changed since he's accepted Christ, or, is he kind of like an on fire Christian? I remember when my wife brought me to Christ. So like, I remember being an on fire Christian, just wanting to, like, I don't know, like change the world, So is that kind of where he's at in the spiritual walk?
I kind of like to leave that up to the individual, and people just keep, Paul says, follow me as I follow Christ. Or one of the scriptures says that we are living epistles looked upon and read of men. And you truly, we talked about the personality, because I really want people to understand, you may not like a person, but you have to love a person. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, a person's heart truly will bleed out eventually. What's really in the heart. And when I looked at what he did in his administration, when he lowered inflation, when he gave the highest employment for, it didn't matter what culture you were, African American, Hispanic, it didn't matter, Asian. When he did those things, when he closed the border and stopped allowing illegals to come over and gave America a chance to breathe and to get the benefits of the land, those things come out of the heart. It's not just head knowledge. Now, he did go to school. Granted, he has some education, but what I've learned and what I've seen from him myself is his heart. And sometimes, again, you don't know everything is in your heart. So when you try to explain it, some people go, you did it wrong. And there was a whole group of people, especially in mainstream media, that just beat him to death about certain things, his tweets. But his tweets is not the reason why the gas prices are high right now. Trust me. His tweets are not the reason why we are going through right now probably a recession. A lot of people don't want to admit that. But his tweets didn't cause that. Poor decisions have caused that. Poor decisions that actually come out of the heart.
That's all right. That's good. I have a couple questions from some of your constituents, if you wouldn't mind. We have a Facebook group, mind you, for this podcast. So generally every week I would mention, who we're having on. Do you have any questions? So I had quite a few questions for you. I tried to just preface it by saying, hey, live in the 4th district, because I want to keep this as specific as possible.
I hope they live in the 4th district.
So I'll read this question verbatim, where they ask, I would like to know how Mr. Benjamin plans to support Virginia's energy needs. There is a plan to put a Dominion Energy wind farm off Virginia Beach. Do you believe this project benefits Virginia's taxpayers or the minority special interests who stand financially from this Green New Deal backed project? Your response?
Yeah, we all know what happened in Texas when hell froze over, right? When it got so cold, and all of the solar and the wind stuff just almost really shut down the grid. I hope people understand what was really going on. That there's no replacement. A lot of these machines actually run off of fossil fuel, and so if we're not maintaining the necessary energy like fossil fuels, natural gas, to kind of run some of these programs, does the wind always blow? And I guess that question, it's a rhetorical question, but it doesn't. Is the sun always up? It's not. So how could you put all of your monies into something that is not always going on all the time? And so I'm hoping that Dominion and a lot of these places will not try to put the wool over people's eyes, thinking that this is really going to work. Because look at what happened in Texas. Okay, it doesn't work. It's not efficient, and a lot of things is going on right now. We heard rumors, that we're sending our oil overseas when we need the oil right here. That is the most ridiculous thing. And our gas price, what would solve the economic problems right now today? All we have to do is start drilling. Us. That's it. And it will be over. over.
Yeah.
The inflation would go down. We wouldn't have to tackle or deal with the interest rates. All we have to do is start drilling. That's it.
Yeah.
And everything would kind of go back to when Trump was in office. But I have a feeling they don't want that.
Yeah. So next question. So you, or I should say, the largest VA hospital in the state falls within the fourth. And the question is, what do you have planned to help improve services or help take care of our vets?
Yeah, we're working with a couple of groups too, and I'm glad you talked about that. Veterans, there's a lot of veterans groups that have come to say they want to come alongside and they want to help me begin to understand more and more the plight of veterans. Myself being a veteran myself, and McGuire Hospital is right up the street from me, as a matter of fact. So the attention that was given even during the Trump administration, long lines. I know what it's like to be sitting down waiting to be seen. But that was improved during the Trump administration, and the type of care that needs to happen. So what we want to do is make sure that we don't have people abusing our veterans inside the system, making us feel like we're second-class citizens, and that the work that we did to serve and to lay down our life for the country is not taken for granted. And so I want to work with these veterans groups. I met a few over this weekend that were there at the Reawaken Tour in Virginia Beach, and they said they want to work with us. They want to help us to get to understand what the plight is and the different difficulties that veterans have been facing. Also, myself being an entrepreneur, I have a few plans. It's on my website about what we call Jobonomics. Being able to afford veterans not just get a job, but to be able to start businesses. And so it's a little bit different spin, where we're not just trying to get you to make an income. We're trying to get you to support your neighborhood, your community with your products and your services. And so that's entrepreneurship, as opposed to being an employee of an employer. So those are things that we want to implement. And these are programs that you can get involved with in under a year, 6 months. And now you have a actual business that is operating where you're providing for your family, but you're also, giving back, contributing back to society. And so I think that's very important. We also have, of course, veterans who have been they have disabilities. So we want to be able to help those, again, who cannot help themselves anymore, whether they lost a limb or have some other type of disabilities. So we want to work, and I want to learn. I want to learn what things that we can do. But those are some of the things that I know that we can really make sure that our veterans are not being abused and they're not being taken advantage of, but they're also given opportunities.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm gonna give you a real world situation. So I'm a veteran.
Thank you for your service. Thank you.
Former infantry guy, 2-3 infantry regiments, Dragon Brigade, was part of the first push into Iraq in 2003. Did my time, got the T-shirt, what have you. Get most of my care at McGuire. I've got a lower back injury because I was a saw gunner, and was seen there, and they implanted these, like, I don't know, these metal things or something called stem wave or what have you, probably TMI, but they had to do it twice because the first time they messed it up, and they didn't like suture it right, and I had like wires coming out of my back, like they're supposed to be under the skin, right? So they're coming out of my back. Had to go to the ER. They had to cut them and remove them, and then one of them they cut wrong, and then it started to like travel. So like even though the cable is supposed to be in my back, I've got one sitting on my thigh right now. It's just a rogue cable, a rogue little like thing.
Wow.
So I go to the VA. I'm like, hey, check it out. This is my story, blah, 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 blah. They're like, well, didn't you sign like, the waiver or whatever like that? And I'm like, are you kidding me right now? Of course I signed it because I want to get the care, I tried the legal route, couldn't really get that to work. I tried writing my Congressman McEachin, looking at you, haven't heard anything. And I know that my story is probably similar to many other veteran stories out there, where they're just like what do I do? What do I do? So what would Congressman Benjamin do?
Well, one of the things that happened during the Trump administration was that not only did you have a right to go to McGuire Hospital, but you can also go to a primary care physician. Mm-hmm. And so that's still that should have been put in place, that you should still get the top care from a primary care physician that would send out a referral, which would still cover under the veterans care. And that was a program that was implemented already. That you're just not susceptible to the doctors at McGuire. You also have a choice to go outside of that system and get the care that you really need. So that's the way that should have been handled. That should have been done. That if these doctors are not doing what they're supposed to do, you have a right as under that care program to get referred to the right type of doctor that could actually implement the operation. So I'm sorry that happened that way, but it shouldn't be, well, we don't have any more doctors for you. They're not in your network. That should not have happened, So you should be able to get to the doctor that can actually do the proper work that is needed.
All right. Well, if you get elected, I'm going to write you a letter too. I'm going to be like,
come on,
Congressman Benjamin, don't forget you're on my podcast, okay? And I told you my whole story. So here it is. Moving on. So another question that came in talked about your website having a lot of themes about, time to unify America, so on and so forth. And the question is, how exactly do you do that? How do you unify America when the country is so divided on so many different issues? And are there areas that you're willing to compromise with, from people on the other side of the political spectrum?
Well, remember, I studied the Constitution. I'm still studying the Constitution. Our founding fathers, in putting together 13 colonies to become the United States, they were actually the United States as 13 colonies. They just made it so that other states could come into the Union. It was all about the power belongs to the states, and to be able to understand that limited government was implemented. That whole ideology, that whole theme that government should be limited. Of course, we are to secure the rights, but the rights don't come from the federal government. But we are to secure the rights and then be able to not compact or contract, but covenant. It was an agreement that we would be united, and that the power of the states, that this is the consent of the governed, and being able to work together with every state. And in Congress, of course, we play, even though it's local, we also play a national position as well, working with 34 other House of Representatives. Isn't it a shame that no one can get anything done? 435 people, could you imagine? And you can't figure out how to close the borders. 435 people, you can't figure out how to lower gas prices. 435 people, and you can't figure out whether or not we should be involved or not in Ukraine or not. This is the unifying idea, was that we all represent our local districts, but when we come together, it's now a national position with local impact. And one of the things General Flynn used to say, local action leads to national impact. Where our positions in Congress, yes, we got there through local action, but the national impact should also come back to the district. It shouldn't be national impact, but the 4th Congressional District, like what's going on right now, is just getting worse and worse. You just can't throw money at stuff. You actually have to see improvement. Any businessman would know, if you keep throwing money at something and it doesn't improve, that's called insanity. And so So what I would do and try to work with my other comrades, okay, and my other House of Representative leaders is that the decisions that we're making, hearing the voice of the people in our district, when we come together with certain bills that may not right off impact our district, but it will impact us on a national level, which will eventually hurt our districts. Let's think about that. Let's think twice before we do things like that.
Yeah, that's good. Now, Governor, well, I should back up. So with Dobbs recently, getting rid of Roe, Casey, what have you, a woman's, ability to get an abortion. Governor Youngkin came out recently and said that he would sign legislation if, for a 15-week ban. So I'm curious on, if you support, that move. Is it too lax? Is it too strict? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a good question. Like again, the ruling, first and foremost, the ruling was not about getting rid of abortion. It was about sending the power back to the states. Mm-hmm. We know that some people are going to get abortion. I don't care if it's legal or illegal, or people go do what they want to do. But the whole thing about justices now saying we don't have the power. This is good. For once, is this right? When the federal government says we don't have the power to decide this case, we're going to send it back to you. So Governor Youngkin is making his case, and let's work with that for right now. Let's work, because at first it was all Wild West, and myself being pro-life, I know that there's life in that body. So my choice, my body, great. It is your body, but there is another body inside your body, and who protects that body? Mm. So let's work with that. The power's back in the states. Let's get the churches involved. Let's get people. Let's again. We started a Eastern Pregnancy Center a few years back. After myself hanging out with Bishop Harry Jackson, Alveda King, Dean Nelson, and many other people, we watched a movie called Ma'afa 21, where it talks about the history of Planned Parenthood and what that was really all about, with Margaret Sanger, and why most of the abortion clinics are in the African American community. Okay, and what that really meant. Well, we all got really ruffled and said we got to do something. And so that was one of the things that got birthed out of that meeting at the Knolls. With our dear Precious, she's now the secretary working with Youngkin, Keiko James. Mm-hmm. She invited us all down there, and we was like, wow, we got to do something. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm hoping right now, that in the states, people will come together. And if you want to do whatever you want to do, just understand, everyone has a right to say, hey, we believe that there's a life inside that body. We want to protect that life.
But I guess my question would be, how do we support the moms? Because we did a whole series on abortion, where we brought in a constitutional scholar, and we had Abby Johnson, who used to work at Planned Parenthood, and now is sort of like a pro-life activist. I remember talking to her, and again, her and I don't really agree on much politically, but it was interesting to hear some of the things her organization is doing. One, she's trying to get jobs for people that used to work at Planned Parenthood into other sort of medical fields. And then also that they support moms by, creating baby registries and funding them, or buying moms' cars, so that way they can get to and from appointments and work, and I thought to myself, wow, this is the person that has strong convictions and is doing things to kind of help support, the success that her convictions are telling her to do. So what are some things we can do in Virginia that can help support moms?
I think, and again, working with nonprofit organizations, churches, working with other coalitions that understand We know that sometimes if the mother is harmed, we've heard this, mother's harmed, then the baby, that may be a justification for that. But understand, that's not always the case. That's very minimal, and so galvanizing and coming around that family, that not just the mother, but how about the dad, the father? We need services, and it's a whole, what we call the total care of the whole individual, spirit, soul, body, social, emotional, and financial. We all need to come together. So I applaud programs. Our church, I mean, we work with homeless, we work with people in foster care. We've had issues as a pastor. You know what I'm saying? I've been a pastor for 20 years. No, of course. Okay, the young lady's pregnant. Okay, all right. She might not have did it the way that might have been prescribed to give her the best benefit of starting a family. But right now, okay, let's move on. Let's go ahead and get around that young lady and let's support, whether it be financially, whether it be spiritually, social, emotionally. And the churches, I think, need to step up even more. We can do better. We can do better so that mom doesn't feel frazzled or like a victim and feels like the only choice that she has and that father has is to abort the baby. And that should not be the case. So we have to do better.
So just a couple more questions, and I definitely really appreciate your time with us. I think again, I just really appreciate your time. So what are your thoughts about the 2020 election and the events of January 6th? I'm not necessarily like going to ask you if you think the 2020 election, was stolen or who the legitimate president is or anything like that, because I just don't think those are helpful. But I'm curious about your overall take on the 2020 election and what transpired at the Capitol on the 6th.
Yeah, it's one of those things where the left and the Democrats have tried to scare people like me into like, I have a degree, a bachelor's. I went to college. I got a master's in Christian education, a bachelor's in religious studies. I know what 1 + 1 is. It's 2. And I know what 5 × 5 is 25. And you can't tell me that something not happened in 2020 on November 3rd. The election, something happened, and things happened that normally do not happen, and it ended up. For us, 1 + 1 is 2. Something happened that was not supposed to happen. I ran in 2020, so I can tell you, I was winning up until about 9 o'clock. I was getting calls. Hey, great job! Congratulations. Somewhere along the lines, votes got. What happened? They shut down counting, but then they really didn't. And then by 3 a.m., everything turned. So I want people to understand, we got our own minds. We can think for ourselves. We don't need a January 6th commission of a bunch of leftists who hate this country anyway and hate our values to tell us what happened. I think we really need to get some people back who are not afraid of people who use fear tactics and threaten. I mean, these guys have been in what happened at the Capitol. These guys have been in jail for almost 2 years. Some of the things that have impacted them, they should have never been in there. This is one of the biggest red flags that I've ever seen, and they want us to be afraid. See, I come from a prophetic family, and it's amazing how some of the church people are so afraid to speak out. Our founding fathers would be flipping in their grave right now. I call them TJ, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, Benjamin Franklin. This is what they gave up their very livelihoods to make sure that we had freedom and liberty. They all took risks. I don't know what's going on right now, but I'm telling you, Will, there is a rise that is coming up of people who are not afraid to die. I'm sorry. The only thing that can hang over us is death. Well, they need to go talk to Jesus. And I'm telling you, he's alive. And if people are afraid to talk about November 2020, something's wrong with this nation. We have raised up a wrong generation who are just not really ready to take hold leadership. And that's one of the reasons why I'm running for Congress. If we get afraid of these people, then we're going to teach a new generation to walk in fear, and I can't afford to have that on my watch.
So after 2020, it's 2024. So here's sort of the $1,000 question, and my last one actually is do you think Trump should run for president in 2024? And if not, who do you think would be the best candidate to represent, the ideals of the Republican Party?
Well, I think the real question should be not if I think he should run. I think let's look at all the signs right now. If he is going to run, the signs are all over the place that he is coming. He's coming. And if others want to jump in, they have a right? This is a political process. I don't know if he's coming, then who's going to run with him? That's the other question. And if anybody else wants to run, don't they have a right through our process to jump in? And the train is getting hot, Will.
Well, it's one of those things where, like, okay, so just to play a little political punditry, like, all right, so I'm the Democrat. I voted for Biden. I don't think he should run again. I'm not a big Biden supporter. It's just, for me, Biden wasn't Trump, so I voted for Biden. I think it'd be great for him to step aside and let somebody else come along, but I don't think he will, because then, people would have to choose like this unknown Democrat person or Trump. And I think that Trump stands a better chance if Biden doesn't, if Biden doesn't run again, I think Trump will win. But if Biden runs again, I don't think Trump will win. That's not to say that Trump can't win. I mean, if you look at the poll numbers for Biden, I mean, they're pretty horrible, but like I've spoken.
I was getting ready to say that. I was like, even the Democrats are saying.
but it's almost like so I just got back from vacation. All my in-laws live in Indiana, total Trump country. Everybody in my family, in my in-law side, are all Trump supporters, with the exception of my wife. And I asked him that question. I said, like, do you want Trump to win, or do you want Trump to run? No, I'd rather not. Well, who would you want to run instead? Well, DeSantis looks pretty good. I was like, okay, and that was the common theme that I kept getting over and over again, that they don't want Trump to run. But if he did, some of them are sort of on the fence. Like, I don't know, maybe I just won't vote, So I'm curious on what your thoughts are, on if he wins.
I'm telling you that all the signs are around. People just have to open their eyes and see what this nation has been through in the last 2 years, and where do we want this nation to go in the next 10 years or so. And so we really got to pay attention to the signs. And all I've been hearing is this train, choo-choo, and it's getting louder, and it's building steam, and Trump is coming. So for those who don't like that, you have a choice. Go find you a candidate you can back and support, and do, like I said, in this nation, a constitutional republic, you have a right to stand behind anybody. And but I'm seeing the signs, and that Trump train, I'm sorry, it's getting steamy, it's getting hot, and again, we gotta stay America first. Who is supporting America first? I want to know. Who is supporting our military? Who's supporting our police back in the blue? Who's supporting our families, our mothers, our mama bears, papa bears? Who's supporting our children? Who's supporting lower gas prices, lowering inflation? Who's supporting these things? Property rights, power going back to the states. I mean, come on, let's look at the line and let's see who shows up.
Got it. Well, thank you so much, Leon Benjamin, for Congress, for Virginia's 4th. How can people get a hold of you, figure out more about you? You got any upcoming events or anything like that you want to talk about?
Yeah, we got some great events coming up, town hall meetings. They can go to my website, Benjamin4Congress.com. That's Benjamin4Congress.com. I also started a podcast called Black Pastors update podcast where we're just talking to African American pastors, but it's not just about Black pastors. I'm inviting all cultures on to let's talk about the issues. Also, we started a podcast just dealing with, I call it Black Community Report. I'm even doing rap, man. I can rap a little bit. I mean, I love it. My children going, Dad, stop it.
Give me a sample.
I was like, I can rap.
Give me a sample. Got to give me a sample.
I wanna reach out. I want to reach out to the community. I can give you something right now. It's like, when you're going to run, you got to know it's not fun, but you got to be serious so you don't be delirious. You got to take it back so you won't be joining the pack. You got to make forward decisions so you won't be in derision. Choose Benjamin right now because he's not a cow. He's the one that's going to help you decide what's going to happen.
What? That was awesome. Well, on that note, thank you again, Leon Benjamin for Congress.
You brought out the best of me, Will. That's all I can say. You brought out the best of me, man. I love you so much for having me. Thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, don't forget to vote, people. And we will see you next time. All right. Bye-bye.